Imagine you have been hiking all day.
Oh, yeah, just completely exhausted.
Exactly. Your muscles are aching, your boots feel like they're, made of lead, and the sky just suddenly opens up into this freezing downpour.
Sounds miserable.
Right. But then you duck into a small, warm mountain hut to escape the rain. You shake off your jacket, grab a mug of steaming hot tea, and you sit down at this heavy wooden table.
Mm-hmm.
And right there, you strike up a conversation with a total stranger. A conversation that just might shift the fundamental way you look at your own existence.
I love that framing. That's exactly the vibe we're going for.
Yeah, that is exactly the atmosphere we're bringing to you today. Welcome to our deep dive. I'm so glad you could join us in our metaphorical mountain hut because we have a genuinely profound text to explore with you today.
We really do.
We're looking at Daniel Lenhart's book, The Way of Yoga. And, we all know that yoga is much more than just the physical asanas we practice on the mat.
Right, the stretching and the poses.
Right. Exactly. But Lenhart's framework takes this a massive step further. Our mission today is to explore his vision of yoga as this deeply eclectic, non-dogmatic blueprint for total self-responsibility.
And that framing is so crucial. This deep dive is really about giving you practical philosophical tools. Because, let's face it, navigating the sheer density of modern life is exhausting.
So exhausting.
Right, so we want to help you find an authentic baseline of inner clarity. Lenhart introduces this conceptual framework he calls the two-level model of existence. And it really demands we reconsider how we process reality.
It totally flips it on its head.
It does. We're also going to examine his argument regarding the human ego, specifically why treating the ego as an enemy that you need to destroy is, well, fundamentally misguided.
Which is a huge trope in wellness circles, right? The whole kill the ego thing.
Oh, absolutely. But he shows us how we can achieve what he describes as a spiritual birth by properly conditioning that ego instead of fighting it.
Okay, let's unpack this, starting with that two-level model, because it really is the foundation upon which the rest of his philosophy rests, isn't it?
It absolutely is.
He argues that human beings are always, constantly operating on two distinct levels of existence simultaneously. The first is the physical object level. This is the tangible world we interact with every single day. It encompasses matter, linear time, physical forms, and, our own biological bodies.
Right, the stuff we can touch and measure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's the realm where you have a mortgage, where physical objects degrade, and where we inevitably age. And Lenhart emphasizes that this level is entirely temporary. It is strictly governed by the universal law of arising and passing away. Everything on this level, without exception, has an expiration date.
And because it is so loud and demanding, it is incredibly easy to become just entirely consumed by that level.
Yeah.
But Lenhart contrasts this physical object level with what he calls the sign level, the being level.
Let me pause you there because I think it's important we define this clearly. When Lenhart talks about the sign level, or this energy of being, is he just referring to like a psychological state of flow? Or does he mean something more structural to reality?
He means something much more structural, almost metaphysical, really. The sign level is the subtle, energetic, eternal dimension of existence. It is not bound by the constraints of time or physical space at all.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, Lenhart characterizes it as representing universal love, pure creative energy, and absolute unity. It's the underlying energetic fabric of the universe that connects literally everything. It's not just a mood you tap into on a good day. It is the fundamental reality beneath the physical forms we see.
So we have the temporary physical world of distinct objects on one hand, and the eternal energetic world of unified being on the other.
Exactly. And what's fascinating here is that we exist on both of these levels at the exact same time. You are a biological entity navigating a physical space, but you are also fundamentally composed of that eternal energy. Lenhart points out that the real tragedy of the modern human condition is our tendency to live almost exclusively on the physical object level.
We get so tunnel-visioned.
We do. We become entirely absorbed by the material world, by our status, by the aging of our bodies, by the accumulation of assets, and by narrowing our focus so drastically, we ignore our inherent capacities on the energetic level. We lose touch with our potential for boundless compassion, deep intuition, and a profound inner stillness that isn't dependent on external circumstances.
He illustrates this dynamic so beautifully with the metaphor of the water drop.
Oh, I love this part.
It's so good. He describes the individual human soul as a single drop of water that has been temporarily scooped out of the infinite ocean of the universal sign.
Right.
So while you are alive, walking around in your physical body, you experience existence as that individual drop. You have a distinct shape, you have boundaries, you have a temporary physical identity.
You feel separate.
Exactly, you feel separate. But your core essence, the very water you are composed of, is exactly the same as the entire infinite ocean. You are not separate from the universe. You are simply a concentrated expression of it.
Beautifully put.
And when your physical body eventually reaches its expiration date, that drop doesn't cease to exist. It simply loses its temporary boundary and merges back into the vast ocean it originated from.
It is a profound visualization because it really softens that terrifying sense of finality we inherently associate with the physical object level.
Yeah, it takes the sting out of it.
It really does. When you view existence purely through the lens of physical objects, death is an absolute end. But when viewed through the sign level, it is merely a transition of form. This perspective fundamentally alters how we experience our daily lives.
It really changes everything.
Which makes me want to turn to you, listening to this right now. What stands out to you? Does your daily life feel entirely restricted to just navigating physical objects, chasing deadlines, and managing material stress?
Probably, for most of us.
Right, but do you ever actively feel that underlying connection to the ocean, that energetic unity with the people and the environment around you?
It is a challenging question to just sit with. And Lenhart argues that recognizing this connection isn't something that just happens to us automatically. We don't just wake up one day enlightened.
Definitely not.
It requires an active transition, which he refers to as the second birth. To explain this, he uses the analogy of a bird hatching. A bird is technically born twice. Its flank birth occurs when it's laid as an egg. It exists in the physical world, it has form, but it's entirely contained within a shell. Its second birth happens only when it expends the energy to break out of that shell and emerge into the wider environment.
Right, it has to do the work.
Exactly. Lenhart suggests that humans operate similarly. We are born physically, that is our first birth, our entry into the object level, but we have to actively work to break our own psychological shells to achieve our spiritual birth into the sign level.
The emphasis Lenhart places on the word active cannot be overstated here. Unlike your physical birth, which is an event that essentially happens to you, this spiritual awakening demands an immense degree of self-responsibility. Lenhart is very, very clear that you cannot outsource this process.
You can't just hire a life coach to do it for you.
Exactly. You cannot pay someone to do it, and you cannot hand over your intellectual or spiritual autonomy to a guru or an institution. A teacher might be able to articulate the concepts or, point toward the path.
Like Lenhart is doing with the book.
Exactly. But the actual labor of breaking the shell rests entirely on your shoulders. It is a deeply personal, solitary journey of waking up to your energetic reality.
Which naturally leads us to the methodology. How do we actually begin to dismantle that shell? Lenhart focuses a significant portion of his text on our relationship with time.
This is a huge piece of the puzzle.
He posits that the past and the future are essentially cognitive illusions that serve to keep us tethered to the physical object level. When we are agonizing over a decision we made a decade ago or spiraling into anxiety about an outcome that might happen next month, we are completely disconnected from reality. Because from the perspective of the sign level, reality only ever unfolds in the present moment.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Lenhart warns about the profound energetic consequences of living predominantly in the future, particularly when that projection is rooted in anxiety.
Right.
He discusses the law of attraction using the German phrase geliefert wird wie bestellt, which translates to delivered as ordered.
Let's delve into the mechanics of that because it can sometimes sound a bit like superficial pop psychology if we don't ground it properly.
Oh, for sure. The whole secret manifestation thing.
Yeah, exactly. Why does projecting fear actively draw on negative experiences? Is he talking about a metaphysical law, or is it more about cognitive bias?
Lenhart frames it as a principle of energetic resonance. It isn't just a psychological trick where you notice bad things more often because you're looking for them, though that is part of it. He argues that everything vibrates at a certain energetic frequency.
Yeah.
If your internal state is constantly generating fear, lack, and anticipation of disaster, your energetic vibration aligns with those concepts. You are essentially transmitting an order to the universe based on scarcity.
Delivered as ordered.
Exactly. To experience that second birth, you must anchor your consciousness entirely in the present moment. You must cultivate the ability to accept the experiences of the now neutrally, observing them without instantly categorizing them as good or bad.
And observing neutrally might be the single hardest thing he asks of us. because our brains are fundamentally wired to judge everything instantly for survival.
Oh, absolutely.
This ties directly into what Lenhart called the stimulus-reaction model, or the Rees-reactions muster. Modern life is a relentless bombardment of stimuli. It could be an aggressive email, a sudden traffic jam, a notification on our phones.
A weird look from a coworker.
Exactly. The stimulus hits us, it triggers a physiological feeling, and we immediately, almost unconsciously, react to it.
Mm.
He points out that this is an evolutionary mismatch. We are taking the biological survival mechanism meant for escaping a physical predator, like a saber-toothed tiger, and applying it to a passive-aggressive comment in a meeting.
It is an ancient algorithm running in a modern environment. When we operate strictly on that short-circuit stimulus immediately followed by reaction, we lack true autonomy.
We're just robots, basically.
We are. We're functioning as biological mechanisms playing out pre-programmed survival patterns. Lenhart suggests that the ultimate philosophical goal of yoga is to insert a conscious pause between the stimulus and the reaction.
The pause.
The pause. He emphasizes a realization that sounds simple but is incredibly difficult to internalize. You are not your reaction, and perhaps more importantly, you are not your feelings.
That's a tough pill to swallow for a lot of people.
It really is. But feelings are temporary, energetic visitors. They arise, and if you refrain from clinging to them or feeding them with narrative, they dissipate.
I want to play devil's advocate for a second here.
Please do.
Is there a danger here of just suppressing our natural emotions? Like, if I feel angry about a genuine injustice, shouldn't I react to it rather than just letting it dissipate?
That's a great question. But Lenhart makes a very sharp distinction between observation and suppression. Suppressing an emotion means taking the energetic charge of that feeling and burying it in your physical body, which only creates more tension and illness.
Right.
Observation means allowing the feeling to exist fully in your awareness without letting it dictate your subsequent behavior. You acknowledge the anger, you feel the heat of it, but you don't automatically send the aggressive email. You wait in that pause.
He uses a visceral example from Vipassana meditation to illustrate this.
The pain example.
Yes. During a Vipassana retreat, you sit in absolute stillness for hours. Inevitably, your physical body rebels. Your muscles cramp, your joints ache, and it becomes excruciatingly uncomfortable. Your brain's survival algorithm starts screaming at you to move, to adjust your posture, to react to the stimulus of pain.
Fight or flight kicks in.
Exactly. But the instruction is to remain still and simply observe the sensation. You watch the cramp objectively, almost like a scientist observing an anomaly, and the revelation comes when the meditation period ends and you finally shift your legs. That intense, all-consuming agony vanishes almost instantly.
It's just gone.
It wasn't a permanent state of your being, it was just a passing sensation on the physical object level.
To your point, by refusing to react, you break the mechanical chain of the stimulus-reaction model. You endure the stressor, and you teach your nervous system that a sensation of discomfort is not a mortal threat. You reclaim the steering wheel from your biology.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because when you view it through that lens, the physical practice of yoga, the asanas, takes on a completely different dimension.
Oh, completely.
The yoga mat isn't just about flexibility or getting a good workout. It is a literal laboratory for cultivating this exact mental resilience.
That's the perfect word for it, a laboratory.
You intentionally place your physical body into a twisted, uncomfortable position. Your muscles tremble and your brain signals distress. But instead of abandoning the pose or panicking, you train yourself to breathe smoothly. You practice remaining neutral and present inside the discomfort. You are actively engineering that pause.
You are utilizing the physical body to discipline the mind. But to maintain that discipline outside of the yoga studio, we must address the mechanism that usually forces us out of the present moment, the human ego.
This is a fascinating part of Lenhart's work, because he actively pushes back against a very dominant narrative. In many spiritual and wellness communities, the ego is treated as the ultimate villain. The prevailing advice is that you must kill the ego or destroy the ego to achieve enlightenment.
Right. Ego death.
Exactly. And Lenhart forcefully disagrees with this destructive approach.
He views that narrative as a fundamental misunderstanding of what the ego actually is. Lenhart argues that the ego is an intrinsic, neutral tool. It is the motivational drive that allows us to function as individual entities within the physical object level.
It's what gets us out of bed in the morning.
Exactly. He compares the ego to a surgical scalpel. If a scalpel is wielded by a violent individual, it causes immense destruction and pain. But if that exact same piece of metal is held by a skilled, disciplined surgeon, it has the power to save lives.
That's a great analogy.
The blade itself possesses no moral alignment. The outcome depends entirely on the consciousness that is directing the tool.
So if you attempt to obliterate your ego, you are effectively destroying your ambition, your individuality, and your capacity to engage meaningfully with the material world. Lenhart argues that instead of destruction, our task is conditioning.
Conditioning, yes.
An unconditioned ego is simply a biological survival algorithm running unchecked. It interprets every social friction as a mortal threat. It operates on the logic of scarcity, constantly driving us to compare ourselves to others, to hoard status, and to reinforce the boundary between us and them.
It is deeply insecure by nature.
Super insecure.
However, Lenhart explains that we have the capacity to condition this drive using our higher intellect, our capacity for reason, and an adherence to universal ethics. We don't discard the scalpel. We train ourselves to be the surgeon.
I love that.
When the ego is disciplined by a clear, conscious mind, its immense energy is no longer squandered on petty comparisons or selfish acquisitions. Instead, that same vital drive can be channeled outward to serve the broader community, to build structures that alleviate suffering, and to engage with the world from a foundation of abundance rather than fear.
It is the subtle but massive difference between wanting to lead a project simply to prove you are superior to your colleagues versus wanting to lead a project because you genuinely believe you can guide the team to create something valuable. The outward action might look similar, but the energetic driver is completely different.
This raises an important question, and it is one we must constantly ask ourselves. Who is actually making the decisions?
Oh, that's the big one.
Throughout any given day, we make hundreds of choices. I would prompt you to reflect on your own actions today. Are your decisions being guided by your conscious, ethical reasoning? Or has an unconditioned, insecure ego quietly taken the steering wheel to protect its pride, seek external validation, or avoid looking foolish?
It requires a brutal level of honesty to answer that.
Yeah.
Because the ego is incredibly adept at disguising its demands as logical necessity or righteous indignation.
Very sneaky.
So how do we navigate our ambitions? How do you set goals and build things in the physical world without letting the ego attach itself to the outcome? Lenhart offers another brilliant metaphor here. The archer.
The archer, yes.
He explains that the yogic approach to action is like an archer preparing a shot. You bring all of your intellect, your training, and your focus to the preparation. You check your stance, you regulate your breathing, you pull the bowstring with intention, and you aim with absolute precision.
You're fully in it.
You commit fully to the process.
Yeah.
But the exact microsecond that arrow leaves the bow, your responsibility ends. You must completely detach from the result.
Because once the arrow is in the air, it is subject to the variables of the physical object level. A sudden gust of wind might alter its trajectory. The target itself might shift. These are factors entirely outside of your control.
Right.
If your ego is rigidly attached to the outcome of hitting the bullseye, you will inevitably experience suffering when the physical world intervenes. But if your locus of control remains firmly on executing your own action with integrity and presence, you maintain your inner peace regardless of where the arrow eventually lands. The integrity of the action is the goal.
But how do we practically detach from the outcome, like the archer, when in our modern society, our livelihoods often literally depend on hitting the target? If we miss the quota, we lose the job.
That's the reality of the object level. But Lenhart isn't suggesting we become apathetic to our material reality. Detachment doesn't mean you don't care if you hit the target. It means your fundamental sense of worth and your internal equilibrium are not destroyed if you miss.
Ah, okay, that's a huge distinction.
You review your technique, you adjust for the wind, and you draw the next arrow. This capacity to act with integrity while maintaining internal equilibrium is the bridge to what Lenhart considers the ethical core of his philosophy, universal compassion.
And he frames his compassion not just as a moral nice to have, but as a structural law of the universe. Drawing on ancient wisdom, he references concepts found in both the Tao Te Ching and the Talmud. Lenhart reiterates that everything is fundamentally energetic vibration. The sequence is vital. Thoughts become words, words become actions, actions become habits, and those habits eventually solidify into your destiny.
Lenhart takes this a step further by emphasizing the physical reality of our communication. He notes that words are not merely abstract semantic definitions stored in a dictionary.
They're not just ideas.
No, they are literal, physical, energetic vibrations pushing through the air molecules between us. When you speak, you are actively projecting energy out of your biological body and into the surrounding environment.
This completely reframes how we think about our daily interactions.
Yeah.
It explains why you can receive a compliment from someone where the dictionary definition of the words is perfectly polite, yet you feel a distinct dissonance,
The bad vibe.
the bad vibe. Your body is reacting to the underlying energetic intention, perhaps jealousy or sarcasm, which is vibrating at a different frequency than the semantic meaning of the words. Lenhart points out that this energetic reality extends far beyond human sociology.
Right.
Even plants and animals, which possess no understanding of human vocabulary, react demonstrably to the energetic vibration of the intentions directed at them. They physically respond to the vibration of compassion versus the vibration of hostility.
It's all connected on that sign level.
So what does this all mean? When we weave all of Lenhart's concepts together, what does it practically mean to walk the way of yoga? It clearly isn't about mastering complex physical postures to showcase on social media.
Definitely not.
It is about embracing a radical degree of self-responsibility. It is about consciously choosing universal compassion over the insecure demands of an unconditioned ego. It is about navigating the dense, chaotic, physical object level with a mind that remains driftlessly permeable.
Permeable. I like that.
You allow experiences, stimuli, and emotions to flow through your awareness without
Yeah.
getting trapped by them, without immediately judging them, and without reacting purely out of ancient biological habit.
To synthesize the core of our discussion today, Lenhart is inviting you to recognize the illusion of permanence on the physical object level. He is asking you to acknowledge and cultivate your inherent connection to the eternal energetic sign. He is not demanding that you destroy your drive or your individuality. Rather, he challenges you to condition your ego, training it to operate like a skilled surgeon's scalpel in service of the greater good. And most importantly, he is urging you to actively pursue your spiritual birth by mastering that critical, quiet pause between the world's stimulus and your own reaction.
It is a profound, lifelong practice, and I want to sincerely thank you, our listener, for taking the time to join us in this metaphorical mountain hut today.
It's been a great conversation.
It really has. Remember that the path of yoga, as Lenhart describes it, is intensely individual. There is no universally correct pace. There is no falling behind, because the only time that actually exists is the present. There is only the conscious decision made right now to take responsibility for your own energy.
As we wrap up and you step back out into the demands of your own physical object level, I want to leave you with one final striking image from the conclusion of Lenhart's text.
Let's hear it.
He speaks about the profound spiritual instruction we can take from something entirely unremarkable, a simple stone.
A stone.
A stone perfectly and effortlessly embodies the universal sign because it exists entirely without the complications of an ego. It has no desperate desires, it harbors no anxieties about its future, and it carries no regrets regarding its past. It exists perfectly, quietly, and entirely in the present moment.
That's beautiful.
So I offer you this challenge. The next time you feel overwhelmed by the relentless noise of your own ego or the heavy demands of the physical world, take a moment to look at a stone. What could you learn from simply allowing yourself to be without the constant, exhausting need to prove your worth, achieve an outcome, or immediately react?